The January update is here, and you know what that means. Altina's Refine is finally here. But can it live up to the hype, or will we get another legendary Ike situation? There's only one way to find out, so let's jump right in. Okay, let's start off with the elephant in the room. We have the Ragnell Alondite Refine. But first of all, they did not touch the base effect at all. It is still distant encounter with the dual phase brave effect. But for the Refine itself, it's if foe initiates combat or foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at the start of combat, grants attack and resistance +5 to unit during combat, and special cooldown charge +1 to unit per attack, and neutralizes bonuses on foe's attack and defense during combat. So essentially, we break this down. We have distant encounter, -5 speed, a dual phase brave effect, and then if the foe initiates combat or if their HP is greater than or equal to 75%, we get +5 attack and res, a dual phase brave effect, and then a low attack and defense. Now, in all honesty, this is not the best. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not great. And the reason for that is, first of all, we did not get very many stats. I was really hoping to get +5 to all stats at the very least, or even -6 attack and defense on a foe. With this, we're only getting attack and resistance. There's no defense here, which definitely sucks. The dual phase brave effect is nice. It makes sure that Altina doesn't need a support to get her twin blades off, but at the same time, because she has no tempo or anti-guard effect in her weapon, she is weak to guard, so it's going to be able to stop her from getting that twin blades off, which is super annoying. The other thing is that that effect is very easily given out by supports nowadays, right? We have Brave Lucina, we have Thor, we have Duo Thor, we have Na, we have like New Year's Valoria. There's a ton of options for that support. So honestly, it's not like the best effect you really would want. We'd really want something different. And then lastly, we have low attack defense, which is a solid effect, don't get me wrong. But I really wish it was just a dull all effect, or at the very least, it included resistance. And the reason for this is because of the Sirius Chosen, which we're about to go over in a second. But essentially, Altina is very reliant on resistance checks nowadays, and having a low res on there actually would have made it much easier for her to hit those resistance checks, because she could essentially buff herself up with like a +6 to resistance, while the foe could not. Not having that actually hurts a ton. Now let's move on to a Sirius Chosen and talk about that a bit, and then I'll give my overall thoughts on the Refine and the Remix. So for Sirius Chosen, we have neutralizes effective against flying bonuses if unit is adjacent to only Beast or Dragon allies, or if unit is not adjacent to any ally, or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at the start of combat. Grants attack, defense, and resistance +9 during combat. And also, if unit's resistance greater than foe's resistance, deals damage equals 70% of the difference between stats, max 7, and reduces damage from attacks during combat and from AoE specials by percent equal difference between stats ×4, max 40%. Okay, so let's break that all down, right? So we have IOT Shield, we have attack, defense, and resistance +9 during combat, with 3 different conditional effects, which is really nice, so it's going to be pretty easy for Altina to get those 9 stats. She gets up to 7 true damage per hit, and she gets Dragon Wall effectively. So overall, this is much more than I thought she would get in the Sirius Chosen itself. She got a nice stat boost. I kind of just expected them to put resistance +6, but the fact that they updated all the stats to +9 is great. We got true damage, and we got damage reduction, 2 of the things I was talking about on my tier list, but they are not the best versions of it, let's just say. First of all, if we look at my tier list, you'll see that I have true damage in the A, S, and S+ tier, and there's a lot of different versions I have here, right? I have like the Asker true damage, I have like Treachery, Dominance, Blade Tome, Defense Base, right? I have everything on here, right? This true damage was so under my radar because it's so old that I didn't expect we'd ever see this again. This is the kind of true damage we got from like Nysala on his base weapon, or like Leif, or like Flying Nino, right? Like this is like old school true damage. It's very outdated, and the reason for that is because it has a cap on it, right? Only 7 true damage is not great. You really want true damage that is just based off of stats, so like either 10% of Altina's attack, 10% of her resistance, something. Like you want some kind of stat you can stack, so that way it is good from now until forever, right? Because as skills get better and you get more stats, so will her true damage. So this honestly, while this is good, it's not the best. I would essentially put it in the A tier, like below Blade Tomes. And then we have damage reduction, which is good. The problem is, same with the true damage, is that it's based off resistance. And the problem with that is that Altina is a mythic who does not get mythic buffs, which means she will always be at a stat disadvantage compared to her enemies. Especially in Anima season, where Arvel and Mirabilis are the 2 meta defense mythics, and they both grant resistance, which means the enemy team has a natural +10 resistance against Altina, which is extremely difficult to overcome considering she does not get that advantage herself. This essentially means that Altina will always be at a disadvantage, especially in the future as her stats get more and more outdated. It'll be more and more difficult to hit that resistance stat check because she essentially needs plus 10 more resistance than her foe to get the full 7 true damage and to get the full 40% damage reduction. The one good thing is that it is Dragon Wall, which means it does work against AoEs, which is very nice because we are in the middle of an AoE meta. The problem also is that we are in the middle of a resistance meta, and Altina's probably not going to win a lot of those resistance checks unless she's super heavily invested. Speaking of Arble, they also put out that guard debuff, which is super annoying, and that's why I wanted tempo on Altina so that she wouldn't have to worry about it. But now we have to find some kind of way to give her tempo support, either through female legendary battle or something else, and it's just not the greatest position to be in during Ether Raids. So overall, for Altina herself, the actual mythic, I think she got a pretty good refine. It's not bad. It's going to make her much more relevant, but it's not going to make her broken by any means. I don't expect to see Altina flying around the meta all of a sudden. And for Winter Altina, I think she's in a much more rough situation, as she really didn't get all that much, just a little bit of help, honestly. And the one last thing to remember is that with this remix is that you really do need stats, just like base Altina, right? One of the biggest arguments for Altina being bad was that she needed a lot of investment, and that's just true. She needs a ton of investment to be good. And this remix didn't really change that. You're still going to need a ton of investment because there are so many stat checks built into a Sheriff's Chosen. Okay, let's move on to our next remix, Legendary Leif. So we have Meister Bogan. It has effect against flying foes, inflict speed -5, unit attacks twice, even if the foe initiates, so dual phase brave effect. And when under the player's control, unit gains if unit initiates combat, foe cannot make a follow-up attack. So nothing different there. They literally left his base weapon the same, which is not great. And then we have the Refine. If unit initiates combat or is within 2 spaces of an ally, grants +4 to all stats to unit during combat, deals damage equal 10% of the foe's attack, including AoEs, and neutralizes effects that inflict guard during combat. So the anti-guard effect. Okay, so let's first start off with the big thing is that Leif really needed some help. His damage has just been falling off super hard, and so him not getting any stats in his base weapon is crippling. It's super bad. At the very least, they should have gave him an attack. His Refine gives him a bit of stats, but 10% of the foe's attack as true damage is okay. It's not great. I understand that he has a dual phase brave weapon, so it's more like 20% of the foe's attack. That's still not enough nowadays with everything being so difficult to kill and not having an offensive special, right? His special is a Gale Force, meaning that he needs to be able to do all of his damage with just his attacks. He can't rely on his special at all. So that's not great. And then we also have the anti-guard, which is amazing. That's one effect that's really good. Glad to see that there. That means he's going to be able to reliably get Neuron Zeal off, and he's not going to have to worry about guard turning that off. So let's check out Neuron Zeal's remix because, oh my god, I cannot believe that this has happened in 2023. We thought that Legendary Ike's remix might be the worst remix ever, right? Radiant Ether 2 was just underwhelming. It essentially has Quick Impulse 2 on it, and that's it, right? They're like, how can we make this worse? Let's put just Quick Impulse on it. So Neuron Zeal just has Quick Impulse. That's literally all it got. It is a terrible remix. Easily the worst remix skill we've ever gotten. It's so bad, and I don't understand why they did this. There's so many things they could have done. They could have put the tempo effect or the anti-guard here. They could have put a times pulse effect so it was every single turn. They could have made Quick Impulse 2, just like Ike's, so that way he actually has it at 1 cooldown because he doesn't have slaying in his weapon. There's just so many things they could have done here to make Neuron Zeal better, and they did not. It's just completely underwhelming and terrible, and I don't know what they were thinking, and it's just so disappointing because Leif really didn't need all that much to be amazing. He just needed some more power and a tempo effect, right? Pretty much that's it. And they couldn't even give him that. They gave him the minimum amount they could give him, and that's it. So if we're looking at his Refine overall, it's okay. I'm gonna put it mid-pack. It's not bad, and it's mostly because his base weapon isn't bad. The Refine itself isn't great. It just gives stats, it gives a bit of true damage, and the anti-guard effect. Things he desperately needed, but just not enough of any of them. He just needed so much more. I just don't think this is enough to put Leif back into the meta by any means. And I'm not sure this is even enough to make him powerful in Arena, to be honest. Okay, let's move on to our other bow archer, Claude. And Claude is the opposite of Leif. I don't know why, but Claude just got literally everything. He has an amazing amount of effects here. So let's go through all of it because it's a giant mouthful. So we have effect against flying foes, grant speed +3. If bonus is active on unit or if penalty is active on foe, -5 to all stats on foe during combat. If unit initiates combat, reduces damage from first attack during combat by percentage equal total bonuses on unit and penalties on foe ×3, max 60%. And also, if total bonuses on unit and penalties on foe is greater than or equal to 10, neutralize effects that prevent units' follow-up attacks during combat. At start of turn, if any foe are within 3 columns or 3 rows centered on a unit, inflicts defense -7 on those foes throughout their next actions, and grants attack +6 to Claude for 1 turn. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than 25%, grants attack SP +5 during combat, and grants additional bonus to a unit's attack during combat equal current bonus on unit's attack, and inflicts penalty on foe's defense during combat equal current penalty on foe's defense. Wow, that was a mouthful. That was a lot. So let's break this down to actual effects, and there's a lot of them. Let's start off with the base effective against flying. We have speed +3, so nothing really special there, right? And then if Claude has a bonus or the foe has a penalty, he'll inflict -5 to all stats on the foe during combat. And then depending on how many penalties and bonuses are on Claude and his foe, he can get up to 60% damage reduction. So you're gonna need about 20 bonuses or penalties between the two of them, which isn't too difficult to do. And he's gonna get 60% damage reduction. So it's kind of like a Fall in the Star effect, not obviously as good, but still very, very good. And then he's even going to get offensive no follow-up, because why not? So already at this point, Claude's looking really solid. But then we look at his actual refine, and he can do a nice little debuff within 3 columns or 3 rows, which is going to just make him do more damage, essentially, because it's going to put defense -7, so he's essentially getting 7 more attack. And then he's also going to buff himself, so you don't even need to give him an attack buff, because he can kind of handle that himself. And then he's going to get attack SP +5, which is just more stats, which is very good. And then on top of that, he's going to get even more attack. Essentially, with this weapon, Claude can get something like 31 attack off it. It's stupid. Like, I don't know what they were thinking. Because essentially, he'll get like the 5 stats, then he'll get another 5 attack and speed. Then he'll have a 6 attack buff that gets doubled to 12. And then he puts a defense buff debuff on the enemy, which is 7. And that gets doubled to 14. So, like, Claude is just getting so much damage. He's going to hit extremely hard. And he's also going to be able to survive that first attack because of the damage reduction. And he has defensive null fall, so you can't even stop his follow-up attack unless you outspeed him. So it's there's a lot going on here. I don't know how they can kind of justify giving Claude this much while giving Leif such a tiny remix and refine. It just feels crazy. Now, overall, how good is this refine really? I think this is a very solid refine. This is like an S tier refine for me. It's not broken. I don't think this is going to like make Claude the best archer in the game. I don't expect to see Claude like an SDR or something like that. But I think he'll be an amazing unit on like Ether Raid's defense on the Cav line or something like that. And he's going to be really strong. Not meta-defining strong, but still, like, this is an amazing upgrade for him. And I hope that Dimitri gets treated half as well as this, so he actually can be good too. Okay, let's move on to another 3 houses character, and we have Winter Sothis. Now, if you saw Sothis' last refine, you're probably a bit nervous like I am, but Winter Sothis actually did okay here. So we have a neutralized effect against dragons, grant speed +3, at start of combat if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 25%, +5 to all stats, and neutralizes units penalties during combat. So they actually give a nice little upgrade there in her base effect, making it easier to get those stats, lowering it from 50% HP condition to 25%, and also being able to neutralize her penalties, which is an extremely powerful effect. Now, if we look at her refine, it's if foe initiates combat or if foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, she gets another +4 to all stats during combat. She gets defensive no follow-up, she can neutralize the effects that guarantees the foe's follow-up attacks, and she can reduce the damage from the foe's first attack by 30%. So overall, this is not bad, right? This isn't terrible. My biggest complaint is that they only gave her defensive no follow-up. Like, why not give her full no follow-up? There's just no reason not to. And the thing is with defensive no follow-up is that it makes her like kind of worse with Hardy Fighter because that already gives defensive no follow-up. So if they would have given her actually offensive no follow-up, it would have been better because then she could have done that Hardy Fighter build, which I guess they don't want her to do. They guess they want her to be like a speedy near save or something like that, or maybe far save. I don't know. Overall, this is a decent refine. It definitely makes Winter Sothis better, but it does have a lot of anti-synergy with Hardy Fighter, which is the meta armor build right now. So it's kind of not the best, right? Ideally, you want offensive no follow-up, and you want the damage reduction on the second hit. So the Hardy Fighter takes the first hit, and the second hit gets reduced with the damage reduction. Definitely way better than OG Sothis' refine, but still not enough to push Winter Sothis into the meta. Okay, let's talk about our last 3 houses character, Death Knight. So we have Accelerate Special Cooldown -1, if bonus is active on foe, or foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75% at start of combat, +4 to all stats to unit during combat, and foe cannot make a follow-up attack. Okay, not much of a difference there, just making it a little bit of an easier condition. Then we have at start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, grants +4 to all stats during combat, and unit makes a guaranteed follow-up attack. So, wow, this is underwhelming. Essentially, he's going to have Slaying, he's going to get +8 to all stats during combat, the foe cannot make a follow-up attack, and he can make a guaranteed follow-up attack. It's really underwhelming. Like, this is just not much nowadays, right? Especially when you're considering that he is a Lance Cav, which is just full of powerful units, right? We have Brave Crom, we have Brave Erica, we have Brave Eliwood, we have Legendary Ephraim. Like, there's so many just amazing Lance Cavs, and this just puts him nowhere in range of those units at all. This isn't terrible by any means. It's like a decent refine. It definitely makes him a better unit, but it does not make him like a meta unit or a scary unit. He's not even that fast, so his focus out like a follow-up attack is pretty easy to get through, and his guaranteed follow-up attack isn't really guaranteed if he's not fast enough either. So honestly, it's a bit underwhelming. Definitely the weakest refine of the batch for me. Now we have one more Lance Cav to look out, so let's go check out Sirius's refine. So we have Sirius's refine of Stable Lance, accelerate special trigger -1, if the unit initiates combat or is not adjacent to an ally, +4 to all stats to unit during combat, neutralize effects that guarantees foes follow-up attacks, and prevents units follow-up attacks during combat, so with full no follow-up, very nice. At start of combat, if unit's HP is greater than 25%, grants attack, speed, defense, and resistance +X to unit during combat. X equals number of spaces from start position to end position of whoever initiated combat, times 2 + 4, max of 10, and reduces damage from foes first attack by 30%. Now, Sirius actually got a pretty solid refine in my opinion. He got a lot of things that Cavs want. He got full no follow-up, which is amazing. That means his B slot is completely open. He can not have to run a flow skill at all. He can run something like a trace skill, which is really awesome. And then he also just gets a ton of stats, right? He essentially has a clash effect built into his weapon, but it's an omni clash. So it's not just attack and speed or attack and defense, it's all stats. And that's a really good effect. If you haven't seen that on like Brave Seliph, like it gives a ton of stats, up to 10. So essentially Sirius is getting up to +14 stats, which is massive and way better than Death Knight. I don't know what they're thinking with these two refines being in the same batch. And if that's not enough, he also gets damage reduction, so he's actually pretty tanky. It means that he's going to have an easy time initiating on foes and not dying and being able to get that second hit and probably finishing them off. So overall, I think Sirius actually got a very solid refine. Now, is it a meta refine? No, obviously not. But still, it's very good. It's going to make him a great Lance Cav. It probably doesn't put him up in those upper echelons with like Brave Crom or Brave Erica or something, but it probably puts him somewhere similar to like Brave Eliwood, which is very good. Okay, now let's answer the final question: who got the best refine? So for me, the very top refine is gonna be Claude in S tier, not like S plus or SSS or anything like that, just an S tier. Very solid refine, makes him much more powerful. He's gonna be able to hit really hard. He's gonna be able to do his job while protecting himself with the damage reduction and also making sure he can get those doubles in. So very good refine. Then after that, we're going to have Sirius, who actually got a nice refine for a Lance Cav, which is one of the most competitive movement and weapon type combos right now. So seeing him actually get a nice refine is good. In A tier, we're going to have Altina. Altina, we are considering her refine and her remix, and that's why she's going to be A tier. It gives her like pretty much everything she wants, but there's all caveats attached to it. Essentially, she has lots of resistance checks to make, which are not going to be easy when you are a mythic, and she's weak to guard, which is also definitely a downside, though she can work better by herself without supports. Then we're going to have Legendary Leif after that. He did get some effects he desperately needed, like the anti-guard and the true damage, but honestly just not enough. It's going to make him much more usable, but it's not going to push him over the top. And then also in A tier, we're going to have Sothis. Sothis did get a good refine actually. It's not bad. It's not exactly perfect. It's not going to work the best with Hardy Fighter. You're probably going to want to use like Special Fighter 4 so she can get that additional healing and spam Sirius off all the time. I definitely don't expect to see Sothis anywhere in the meta, especially with Duo Crom running around. But even so, it's a very solid refine. And then down in B tier, we have Winter Altina and Death Knight. Honestly, both of those two refines are pretty not great. I could easily see them going down to C tier by the end of the year. Winter Altina just not getting access to true damage or damage reduction is a big deal, and it really does hold her back. And she's definitely better now, obviously, but it's just not enough, in my opinion, to make her like a top tier duo. And when it comes to Death Knight, it's just a very underwhelming refine. Like, this is just not great. Like, this is something I would expect from like an inheritable weapon that is really good, right? Like, it's like essentially a really good inheritable weapon. Like, this is a White Cat bow level of weapon. This is not something I would expect from a full powered refine. With that said, I'd love to hear from you. What do you think of these refines and remixes? Which one is your favorite? Are you super excited to see Legendary Leif showing up again? Or maybe you're a giant Claude simp and you just feel like you just won the lottery? I don't know. Personally, I'm a bit disappointed, but it's not the worst possible situation. Either way, I'd love to hear from you, so make sure to drop a comment down below. And if you enjoyed the video, drop a like and subscribe. This has been Oblivion. I'll catch you all later.